What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch. I hope you've been enjoying your holiday. Season 8 is right around the corner, Season 7 ending in about 2 days. And with that, I really wanted to take a look into the meta and peer forward to see and establish where the strongest heroes are going to be. However, there's a looming issue overhead that, of course, it's being the holidays, so Blizzard has basically been doing more of spending time with family rather than tweaking the game. However, we do know that in January, there's major changes coming to Ranked, BlizzardWorld's coming, a bunch of skins to the base loot box, a bunch of interesting stuff there, and I think with all of that stuff, there's going to be a bit of a smorgasbord of balance changes as well. So before we talk about what the meta will be for Season 8, we kind of have the luxury to discuss what we would like to see it be, because it's our assumption at least that this big patch is definitely coming, along with all the other content that's coming in January. So with that being the case, where do we start? Well, a lot of things circle around Mercy, and Mercy's a really interesting hero to discuss. And we've noticed this by reading some of the comments that you guys have left us. It seems like even still to this day, a lot of Mercy players feel like she isn't that fun to play or isn't that powerful, which is quite interesting because definitely at the pro side of play, she's deemed a must pick. And even in the matchmaking side of play, she's the most picked hero in the game right now, implying that there is a assumed power to her, even if it isn't an actual substantive one. Me and Weagle actually had quite a disagreement about this in saying that he feels like Mercy's basically a must pick in matchmaking, and I know that a lot of pros feel that same way, and I think where Mercy's at right now is quite similar to how we used to think of Reinhardt being a must pick. Do you remember way back then when it felt like you always had to have a Rein? If we don't have a shield, we're just gonna lose, right? And then in the middle of that meta was developing some dive tactics. Even single tank triple DPS came out of that era where it was assumed you had to have a Reinhardt. And I think in the same way, Mercy from the support category feels a lot like that Rein era where it was sort of just a security blanket that gave such a supportive element to the team. Reinhardt obviously denying damage and allowing you to stand in spots you normally couldn't, and Mercy from the supportive side giving you this really powerful ultimate that can erase some mistakes and allow for some over-aggression and literally pick up your team in cases where they have fallen. So that's where the rubber hits the road for me, of course, because just like in that Rein meta where there definitely was other ways to play that took a bit more skill, we're in the same place now where I think you definitely can play the other supports, but they just take more skill to utilize. And really, as long as your team knows how to play around Mercy, the Mercy knows how to stay alive, and the team knows how to peel properly, then you sort of can play around just getting Mercy's ult and winning with it. Whereas normally support ultimates take some really critical timing, even nano boost has to be used in sort of a set engagement. Trance and beat are best used in response in a complicated ult fight, and the timing of it is everything. Mercy ult is far more forgiving, and the play in order to counteract it is on the enemy team to be able to kill her and burst her down, which is a lot harder to do, which sort of puts the onus on them to counter it. Whereas Beat and Trance and even Nano Boost have a far more limited spike of impact. With all that being said, Mercy's quite problematic, and we have to look at changes that either keep or increase her fun factor, while slightly making an opening for other supports to compete with the amount of value she provides to the team currently. So where can we look? Well, first, I think her mid-fight res has been fixed entirely. I know a lot of players say that it's impossible to use it now, but remember, this is an ability that she used to just not have at all. So you don't really have to focus on trying to get that res off ever. It's more of just an extra thing that you can utilize, which can be very powerful. And more or less, Mercy currently plays just like Mercy 1.0 did, but has the option to have that mid-fight res, and has an ultimate that I think we can all say is just objectively more powerful than the full team res. And that's really where a lot of the issues come about, because Valk lasts 20 seconds, which makes it the most potent and extended supportive kit that exists. In comparison, Moira ult lasts 8 seconds, Sound Barrier and Trance lasts 6, so the whopping 20 seconds that you get out of Valk, even if she didn't have the ability to get an extra res charge, is already kind of stronger than both in a way. Now to me, they have to kind of go one way or the other with this, that her improved movement and survivability need to be reined in a bit. But if you say remove her survivability alone, very quickly she might feel more punishing to play, kind of similar to how she did in Mercy 1.0, which I think is a sentiment that they were trying to remove. So if that's not the route they want to go, what else could they do? Well, would Valkyrie still work if it was only 10 seconds long instead of 20? I think so. because the 2 instant reses oftentimes is a ult that you would use in Mercy 1.0 to get a third of the team back, and 10 seconds of Valkyrie, damage, amp, and healing is still really strong. And then it could justify her being basically unkillable, because just like with Transcendence and Sound Barrier, it's a burst of impact you have to outposition if you can't outplay. Personally, I think that time reduction on Valk is the best way to go. It's the healthiest for the game. It'll keep her around being quite strong, and we hopefully can start to see a support meta where Mercy has the combination of everything everybody wants. She's the most fun, most viable. It doesn't feel like she dominates the game. Now, what ramifications does that have on the meta? The answer is not a whole heck of a lot. It's not going to drastically change how everything is played if Valk got halved in its duration, but that's how strong Mercy actually is. What I hope it would do is allow for Mercy to really fit to enable the comps that we see right now, namely defensive things like Bastion, Orisa, Junkrat, Zenyatta, who doesn't get nearly enough conversation and is one of the best characters in the entire game as well. His win rate is really close to Mercy's if you didn't know. But what I would imagine is that you would start to see the support combinations mattering a bit more and fracturing a bit to have a bit more parity, because that already kind of exists, bar it's hard to play without a Mercy. So like a lot of times pro teams will run dive comp, but we'll just put a Mercy in anyway. I think if her ultimate was tuned back a bit, you could both run her and play without her, which I think is finally the place that most players would like to see. Pretty sure Mercy's getting that change. Another change that I think is coming is a bit of an honorable mention. We've already made an entire video dedicated to a Hanzo rework, because Jeff outwardly said that he's a character that they're looking to rework. And I would say we're due for one, because it seems every couple months they try out a new rework to get a character moving in a different direction to either be more fun or fit at more levels of play, and I really think that's where Hanzo is going to be going. Junkrat got his change, which we're going to be covering next in terms of what they're going to nerf about it, but he got a change that really made him a ton more playable and less punishing, and we'd argue a little bit too powerful right now. And Hanzo's a little bit of a tricky case because he takes so much skill to play and get value out of that he doesn't have that Junkrat-esque flexibility where he can kind of guarantee value. He's really boom or bust, which is something they fixed with Widowmaker, in my opinion, because it used to be the case where she had a 12-second hook shot, which made it feel like she was incredibly diveable. Well, now she's one of the more nimble DPS, actually, and the idea of like diving a Widowmaker is way harder than I think people give it credit for. It's a lot harder to just simply beat her with dive, because if her positioning and timing is good, she can reposition and almost guarantee value in a way where she can just keep pulling you farther and farther back. And as long as she hits a shot in that time, the big assumption there, I guess, right? But she could more easily guarantee value, right? I think Hanzo's going to move that direction as well. I won't rehash the video we did, but it's our assumption that he's going to get more utility arrows. A Hanzo healing arrow, anyone? But, you know, other goofy ideas, penetrating shields. Just don't give him 2 scatter arrows, please, like Junkrat. I think that would be out of order. Moving on to talking about Junkrat. He's an interesting case because I think a lot of players assume that Junkrat is just really easy to play, and it's true that he does get some pretty guaranteed free kills, or at least free value, because if you just put his damage towards that direction, I mean, before he even got reworked, that was how things worked at some of the lower ranks as well. I'm sure many of you are well acquainted with how Junkrat had been played, and now he's even stronger, but I think the majority of the community is probably in agreement that Junkrat gets a bit too much bang for his buck. And there was a Reddit post by PvP Twitch, who is a big-time matchmaking Junkrat streamer who's been playing Junkrat before the big buffs, and even he thinks that Junkrat has a bit too much power, and you can go look that up on Reddit for yourself if you like, but largely the nerfs and where Junkrat's too powerful we agree on. One interesting change that he proposed is that Junkrat's nades don't bounce as much before they blow up, which I think could actually be a major rework to rein him in a lot, because a lot of Junkrat's randomness and spam value comes from the aerial denial of those nades existing a bit too long. Whereas if you think of Pharah rockets, Pharah can be a nightmare to deal with as well, but it's not like her bombs linger in an area. It's one direct thing that you can dodge, whereas Junkrat can miss you, the nade can bobble for a while, and you're either going to get hit or have to not proceed in that direction, which is why his aerial spam can be so great, because even shots he misses, someone can walk into. And the more times a nade bounces before it times out and explodes, the stronger that aspect of Junkrat is, which I think is an interesting thing they could look at. It also could easily make Junkrat really hard to play all of a sudden, and I think he already is harder to play than some people give him credit for. He's one of those characters that really gets different returns depending on the rank you're at, because the more effective like the Tracers, Soldiers, Genjis, Pharahs are around you in your rank, the more counterable Junkrat is, but at the same time there is guaranteed value that he gets, like just spams down tanks for instance. So in the duelist capacity, he sort of goes down a bit as you go up the ranks, and your top tier DPS will still sort of reign supreme, but at the same time he can just have an immense amount of damage value, particularly from his mines, which I think it's important to remember that fun is the #1 concern that we have to keep at the center of all of this, and having 2 mines is just a blast. Getting around in the mobility that you can see out of Junkrat, a player like Jake that we broke down in this channel, getting up into the rafters, going off and dueling a Pharah, jumping up into the sky to do so, is just pretty awesome. But what isn't so awesome is Junkrat having almost more close range insta-kill capability than Doomfist, which is quite an incredible feat, because as long as you can land 1 pill or 2 mines, you either can get 1 or 2 instant kills right away, whereas Doomfist has a big risk to like fly into an enemy and potentially miss and be up close and personal with that, whereas Junkrat can kind of play at that medium safe range distance even around a corner and slam you with 2 mines or 1 pill in a mine, amounting for like a 1-second frag, which in comparison to other things, that's like a McCree headshot and a body shot, or charging up a Widow shot for a headshot, or Hanzo doing the same. That's kind of the issue. Pharah is a nightmare to deal with her spam, but at least her kill takes 2 seconds most of the time, unless you're damage amping and one-shotting a Tracer. But other than that, there's a bigger gap and a window for you to respond, whereas Junkrat, being able to combo both of those instantly is incredibly powerful. So what do we want to do? Something that PvP said, and I agree with as well. You could go as low as 90 damage on the mines, and they would still be insane, because you'd still be able to do the pill mine combo, but the damage intensity and how the splash damage works of throwing mines like over the tanks and crowd controlling them, the oomph of that mine damage seems to be like just as powerful as the crowd control and the movement that Junkrat gets out of the mines. It would sort of shave off the effectiveness of that. Also, it would make it impossible to double mine a squishy target, which is kind of a question. Should he be able to have that basically free kill? And some of you might be shouting at your screens, of course not. Don't let him have a free kill. But the thing is, so many other characters do have free kill abilities, where if you land a scatter, McCree stun, Doomfist punch, whatever, there's a lot of these relatively easy kills on a cooldown that you can get out of abilities, so it's not out of the realm of what's balanced in Overwatch to allow him to have that double mine. So to me, that's a bit negotiable. If you had it at 100 damage, you could still double mine 1 target, but it would do a little bit less in the splash department, but I kind of think that's not enough. I would like to see the Junkrats that succeed in Overwatch were ones that had to rely more on aiming his primary fire more than getting free pickoffs with his mine. But that's just my personal opinion. And one last point, Junkrat's tire is a bit much. A small reduction on the speed that it moves, or even the timer that you have to use it, because right now you can go off and hide it somewhere, send it miles into the skybox to fall down on unsuspecting foes that can't hear it. It feels a bit too capable and a bit uncounterable at the same time. Speaking of counters though, something that I think would be worthwhile to consider is allowing McCree High Noon and Soldier Sights to both target the tire. I'm not sure if Sights does, but I know McCree's High Noon doesn't. So more interactions like that could also help. Like, what if Winston could boop it? I don't even think it's boopable. Like, if Pharah's Concussion Blast could crowd control it, does that just open up a bunch of counterplay that doesn't exist right now? The great thing about the balance of Overwatch right now is that, honestly, just about everything is viable, but because Mercy's so good, things that combined with Mercy well are a bit inflated in how strong they are, I think. And once Mercy gets tuned down a bit, all those characters that are really good with Mercy, including like Bastion riding on the cart, for instance, will still be viable. There will just be bigger windows of space where the counter support options can outweigh the value that Mercy brings, which is a great thing to note because we're really close to the most diverse meta we've ever had. And I've been saying that for a while, and it's been edging towards it bit by bit, where we really are in a meta right now where the maps affects a lot about what heroes are the best, which I think is exactly what we want to see out of Overwatch. So here's to hoping that the game moves that direction. We're really close. These patches and tweaks might go onto the PTR when BlizzardWorld and Season 8 go live around that time, or it could just go into the live game. What do you guys think? Where do you think the meta is going? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think these nerfs, changes, and reworks would be good for the game, and are you excited to see them soon? My bet is they're definitely coming in some degree, fashion, or shape. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're gonna want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, and do remember, we uploaded a video and published a tweet yesterday that we're doing a massive Blizzard and Razor giveaway. Tons of stuff, and if you haven't signed up for that, check it out, either on yesterday's video or on our Twitter. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.